what do you do when the customer says, "No, I'm not interested"? That's the Darwin menu, all right? And what Mike is going to do is he's going to share with us his presentation, his F&I presentation, but not from, he's going to talk about from my point of view, our point of view, not the customer's point of view. In other words, I'm not asking him to do, me pretend I'm the customer and he give me a presentation, because he's a very successful F&I manager. So what Mike is doing right now is he's setting up, very intense. This is what F&I managers have to go through before a customer comes in. They're going to make sure everything's right. They look at the video, the computer, they verify all the information, they make sure the menu is set up or the presentation set up. So when they go in there, all they got to do is focus on the customer. This is why, for you sales consultants out there and your sales managers wondering why it takes so long in F&I, because this is what takes place. It's like you can't just press a button and boom, you go. You got to make sure everything's set up. And then you know what else you got to wait for? The freaking computer.
Yep.
All right? That little circle keeps going round and round and round and round and round. I mean, so talk to your dealer about updating their software so the thing goes instead of ooh.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, some of these dealerships I think are on dial-up still, if there's anything like dial-up. So Mike, you're set up with the menu. I understand you're going to share a lease with us.
So actually, I did switch over to a finance manager.
Oh, you did? Okay, I thought you were going to do a lease. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so what is your preparation prior to actually going into a presentation? I know there's a lot that's involved in getting ready for a customer to come and sit. And I know that your dealership, though they do a number of spot deliveries, do more appointment deliveries than spots.
Yeah.
Okay. So what recommendations can you make to the F&I managers that are watching this video as to how they should prepare for that, that appointment?
So first and foremost, making sure that all your details are correct.
Okay.
Everything from the customer's name to the payment structure, it not only for the customer's sake, but for the rest of your team at the dealership, it saves a lot of time and a lot of hassle to avoid any problems down the line.
Okay.
Last thing you want to do is call a customer and say, "Hey, hope you love your car, but I need you to come back. You got to re-sign half of what we did." That's a terrible feeling. So definitely being prepared and accurate is first and foremost.
And it does have a huge effect on CSI too.
Absolutely.
Getting the customer to come back.
Yeah.
All right. So you make your phone calls, or when the customer's here, obviously you go out and meet and greet them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What type of information are you looking for from the customer, or what are you trying to accomplish on your initial meet and greet with the customer or first communication with them? What are you trying to accomplish?
Firstly, I want to introduce myself so they understand, what the process is from here, that I'll be preparing all their documents to verify all the details, ensure that I have the right people on the right deal for the right vehicle with the right structure.
Okay.
I'll gauge a little bit, maybe feel if there's any interest in any of the programs or any lingering questions they might have about anything.
Okay.
So it's definitely a good opportunity to make sure that they're comfortable with the deal as well.
All right. So I've often talked about determining the customer's driving habits, like going right into it, and that how many miles you drive, how many years you're going to be keeping the car, do you have any pets riding along, where do you service your car, what's your insurance deductible? Do you gather that information?
Typically, at least not on the first meeting, no.
Okay.
No, I feel that's it comes across a little persistent, a little bit pushy, if you're asking those kind of questions immediately, because I think there is a little bit of an air that it's, why do you care if I have pets in the car? I just want you to get my state paperwork done. So I don't want to, start off on the wrong foot with those kind of questions.
One of the things we trainers sometimes forget, we're training and coaching, and we're giving advice, and we're giving the things that should be done. But it's really refreshing to sit with an F&I manager that's actually doing it and hearing what you're saying. I don't disagree with you. I think the initial, as long as you make that initial contact, a connection with the customer, and they feel that connection, I think the next series of questions, the next time you see them, it comes off as more authentic. All right? I totally agree with that. I really do. And because of the results that you have, I can't go in and say, what do you mean? You don't do a full-blown interview on the showroom floor? What's the matter with you? All that stuff I taught you, you don't do? But the thing that people have to remember, everybody in sales, a coach goes out there and they tell you what needs to be done, but you have to formulate your own game plan. And if you're having success with it, then stick with it. And if you're not having success, go back to the playbook, learn these word tracks, and then design your own presentation, which Mike has done over the years he's been doing it.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it, okay? Because I think people have an understanding of what should be done prior to getting a customer sitting in front of you. So I'm not going to say I'm a customer, but let's assume for a moment that I am a customer, and I've watched you from a distance do your presentation.
Yeah.
And I always see the menu sitting over here, just sitting there, like this here. It's just like right there, just like that, when a customer walks in your office. And then you have a stack of paperwork over here, all right? So that's exactly what happens. Every time you walk by Mike's office with a customer, this tablet is sitting there just like that, all right?
Yep.
And then what do you do? What's the next step?
So after we've completed all the state paperwork, everything that doesn't change regardless of, any options or anything.
So you do complete the state paperwork first.
What I do find, it gives me the opportunity to build a little bit of rapport with the customer as well.
Okay.
After the first couple of meetings, after any phone calls and everything, I get to know them a little bit better too. So sometimes I don't even have to probe to ask those questions. They come up naturally, that I do find out they have some pets, or this car is mostly for hauling the grandchildren, or something like that. So it kind of makes things a little bit more natural.
So I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is while you're doing the state paperwork, the things that wouldn't change, the non-essential paperwork.
Yeah.
You're actually having communication with them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Do you have a particular structure, like if you get to the a dominant statement on the trade, do you say something differently, or it doesn't really matter? It's like it all depends.
If something kind of comes up along the way, we might dig into it for a little bit. If there's a question that sparks for me or for them, sometimes we may.
So if you see something that the customer says that would benefit both you and them with regard to the offerings, you're gonna elaborate a little bit more on that.
Sometimes what I'll do, I'll say I'm pretty consistent with which pages I do prior to going into the menu presentation.
Okay.
If something does come up, maybe they mention, that they had a tire and wheel protection on the last one.
Okay.
I'll kind of point over to the tablet and say, hey, actually, we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but we'll get through all the rest of the state paperwork first.
Right. And
sometimes I'll mention it just briefly.
And when you do that, because a lot of folks are sometimes skeptical about getting that menu out there too early, what's the customer's reaction when you say that? Like if they say, well, it's funny you mentioned that because I had a damage to my tire, and then, oh, don't worry about it. Look over here. We're going to be talking about that.
I think generally positive. Yeah,
okay.
I think especially when there was a previous issue that they had, or they're already familiar with the programs. We get a lot of loyal customers. We do a lot of, this is their fifth vehicle they bought from us.
Right.
In a lot of those cases, they're already somewhat familiar with the offerings, maybe not necessarily with the structure using the tablet.
Based on what you're saying to me, it seems to me, and I know you too, because I'll be right up front, you have a very casual approach.
Yeah.
And that wasn't until like the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Before it was like very.
What was the word Nicole used? Mechanical.
Robotic. You had a very robotic and mechanical approach.
Before product prep, I was averaging about 25% VSCs. I had an okay PVR. After meeting Gerry and starting to work with product prep, I come up to anywhere between 45 to sometimes 60% VSC penetration, and my PVR has increased. I'm going to say it's probably been about at least 30 to 40% over working with him. So it's been a very great process. I think Gerry he has such a great energy, and I found he gives me a lot of confidence. He gives me a lot of, I think as he said, another tool in the tool belt. A lot of word tracks to use, and a lot of really good ways to sometimes make something out of a deal that there might not have been anything there before him. I love product prep.
But the thing is, I got to tell you something. When you're new in F&I, you're going to have a robotic and mechanical approach because you're getting used to all this stuff.
Yeah.
We talk about how long does it take for an F&I manager to get settled in, and sometimes it takes as much as 2 years. Seriously. Because there's a lot of minutia that goes on with this job, and I've had that same conversation with, relax, man, you're too tense, you're too robot. So here we go.
Yeah.
All right. So you go, you set everything up, and what do you have a transition statement into the presentation?
It probably varies a little bit in a lot of cases. All right, now that we finished all the state paperwork, I'm going to go over a couple different options that are available to you.
Okay.
Again, it kind of depends on the deal structure, if it's cash versus lease versus finance, those sort of things.
All right.
But after I do transition, I'll bring the tablet over, kind of set it front and center for them. So what this software here is going to show you are all the additional options that are available. The way it is set up right now, this column here called Worry Free shows everything that we have to offer. Then these other 3 columns show different combinations of those programs.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
As we're set up, currently with the structure of your deal, I'm sorry, I can't see these and I wasn't familiar with this deal,
Right.
but here's your current payment. Here's the cash down,
Right.
60 months, whatever, 75 months.
Okay.
So you can take the vehicle home for that amount. That gets you everything that we've already discussed, everything that your salesperson's already gone over with you in terms of the service agreement coverage, in terms of the washing and automotive difference program. What I'll go over here, I'll run through all 5 of these options on this column to explain what all of those are.
Okay.
So at that point, I think that I kind of already feel how engaged they are. I may have to elaborate sometimes on what the factory warranty is, or maybe that WAM difference program if the salesperson wasn't as in depth on it. I may go into a little more detail there.
I find, Mike, a lot of times when I have conversations with F&I managers, especially today, and I've changed my tune. It's like I update my software. Before it was more a rigid presentation. This is the way, because in my AutoNation days, this is the way you did it. Boom, 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 boom. But I think taking a more authentic and casual approach to it, I think because of your results and because of how I've seen customers walk out of your office, I think we should take more of a casual approach. I think we should be more transparent, and that these are options that are available to you. My job is simply to go over with them. And I do agree that you set up, this is the payments you agreed to. I want you to know you can certainly take delivery of the vehicle at those figures, okay? And that includes everything that was explained to you. But I do want to go over the options. And the reason we call it worry-free, and this is something that I brought to the group, is because that column, that worry-free column, regardless if it's a paper menu or a tablet, has every option that's available to you. And that's what you say. Yeah. So you're virtually driving worry-free. So how do you explain the products to the customer? Because my take on it. It's like, exactly. But I know that you go in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, and again, I do kind of base it on the customer. If they're, if they've already asked a lot of questions, and I want to be as explicit as I can, because I'd rather get the answers out to them as I'm presenting it.
Right. Okay.
If it seems like there's someone that's a little more to the point, then I'll be a little more to the point, and then if we have questions, we can face those and address those at the end. So
could I consider you a chameleon?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay. We know what chameleons do, right? They change their color to the scenery. That's beautiful. But if you don't mind, could you just explain the worry-free option to me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the very first one that you'll see on there is the Assurant VSC. That's the Vehicle Service Contract. So what that one does is it's going to give you 84 months and 60,000 miles of coverage. Both of those would start from today. So for the next 7 years or the next 60,000 miles that you put on the vehicle, anything electrical or mechanical, any kind of breakdowns are paid for you.
Okay.
That includes both the parts and the labor, and there's no deductible.
Great.
The next one down is called the WAM Difference Ultimate. That stands for Washington Automall, our company here. What that is, and that's the program you get for free at no charge for the first 6 months. That's going to give you coverage for the tires and the wheels, the dent repairs, the windshield crack and chip repairs, the key replacement, and both interior and exterior damages as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That program is actually on there for 7 years, and there's no mileage limit on it at all either.
Okay.
And as well, no deductibles.
Good.
Right after that, you'll see Crystal Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 2-part application that goes on the front windshield. So the first part is a bonding strengthening agent. It's actually meant to help prevent cracks and chips from forming on the glass in the first place. And the second part is an anti-glare repellency treatment. So it helps improve visibility. You're probably going to notice that most at night and in the rain.
Wow, okay.
Then after that, you'll see the Equity Protect. That is a guaranteed asset protection program. What that does is it pays the difference between your loan payoff amount and your insurance settlement amount if you were to ever have a total loss on the vehicle.
All right.
And also pay your insurance deductibles for you as well.
Cool.
And then right after that, you'll see the Theft Avert program. That pays a $5,000 benefit towards the purchase of your next vehicle if you ever had to report this one stolen. And again, pays your insurance deductibles for you.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. So that's your explanation of the product.
Generally, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
On the WAM difference, I just want to mention one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The 6 months, you don't have it's tire only coverage.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And in a lot of cases, before I'm doing maybe a little bit ad hoc today.
Of course, no, I get it. This is an open conversation.
Yeah. At one point, I did have a banner up on my wall that actually went over some of those options. I'm looking for a holder to actually get it up there a little more securely.
The one I told you to take down because of distracting us. I'm sorry.
So I'll actually kind of point to it as I go. You know
what? I took the proper way. I'm sorry. You're right.
Okay.
My
okay.
fault. My fault. All right. So, what's the next step after you go through the worry-free column?
So at that point, I'll ask, do you have any questions about any of those programs or anything I just mentioned?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, so what you'll see down at the bottom there is the total monthly payment, if you were to select all of those.
Okay.
Then, as we go across the other columns, the practical, that's going to show you the service agreement along with the washing automall difference and the equity protect gap coverage.
Okay.
So then you'd have your payment with all three of those. We'll say some folks will select just kind of more like the core coverage here. That's going to give you just the electrical mechanical coverage with the Assurant VSC.
Right.
And your payment would be right there.
Okay.
The one I recommend the most strongly, you're going to have the Assurant and that washing automall difference for that total monthly payment.
Okay.
Which option do you think works best for you?
All right. I'm not going to get into objection handling. Love the presentation. But I do have a question. And I often talk about this in training sessions, in coaching sessions. This is the one I recommend. Okay. What do you base your recommendations on?
So that will be based on either prior conversations with them. If we have talked about the pets or they drive on pothole covered roads all the time or anything like that.
Or they drive excessive miles.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. I'm glad because I wanted to clear that up because a lot of F&I managers will make recommendations without getting information to back up their recommendation.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because before you make a recommendation, you have to know something about the customer to recommend something to them. It just makes sense.
Another thing that I'll look at too, especially like I mentioned, we have a lot of previous customers with us. I'll take a quick glance at some of their other deals that they've completed here.
Okay, and make the recommendation based on what they purchased before.
This will set you up the same way that you were on the 2021, the same kind of coverages and everything.
Okay.
So that way it's, it's a little smoother and it sounds like, this is something they've already agreed to in the past to keep their coverage.
I like the way you say that. A lot of, there's not a lot, but there's F&I managers out there that will base their presentation solely on what the customer purchased before. And one of the first things they'll say to the customer is, you want it the same way you did, right? Last time. And oftentimes abandon a menu presentation altogether.
Yeah.
All right. But it's good that you go through the presentation. You say, based on your prior purchase, this is what I would recommend. And this is set up the same way.
Yeah.
Awesome. I like that idea. All right. So let's get down to it. I'm not going to ask you to handle an objection because I don't, we do enough of that through product prep. I will ask you though, what do you do when the customer says, well, I'm not interested?
Just out of curiosity, is it, you don't really see any value in any of these programs, or is it more a matter of like payment and budget? Just to kind of see why they're not interested at all. If it's a blanket statement, when we get more into something specific, then it's maybe a specific objection type. But there's just no interest at all. I'd like to know, what's that there for them?
So I have the close. I've always used it. Again, whenever I'm sitting with an F&I manager, I would prefer to go down this road with a customer. If they say I'm not interested, I would say, well, I get it. These options are for everybody. But I tell you what I found, it's that if people don't see enough value to spend the extra money, boom, isn't that how you feel? Or is it because you don't see enough value to spend the extra money? I think that's a better approach because, in my opinion, if you were to say to a customer, what is it, you don't see any value or it's just a matter of spending the extra money, it's the same thing.
Right.
All
You're
right.
kind of meeting in the middle with your way.
Right.
Yeah.
If you say to the customer, I get it. Most people tell me they don't see enough value. I'm assuming you don't see enough value to spend the extra money. Is that really okay?
Yeah.
So what I am curious to see, and one of the things and I remember the first time you shared this with me about 8 or 10 months ago, you said, I'm afraid to show you this, Gerry, because you're not going to like it. And you said, I go, what is it, Mike? And you go, well, I use the fourth column as a shopping cart. And that's exactly what you called it.
Yeah.
But you sell a lot of products. You're a product connoisseur. I mean, of all the F&I managers in this group, you sell the most products. And you're right up there in PVR. It's not like you're sacrificing dollars to get more products.
Right.
And I strongly believe that it's because you give the customer the opportunity to make a choice.
So I'll say that's probably one of the biggest benefits I see of the tablet-based menu.
Okay.
That's also something I'll gauge based on the customer's interaction and our previous rapport and everything. If there's someone who, as soon as I set it down in front of them, they bring it even closer and they really dig in. They can see how the thing works. I'll also explain to them at some point along there. You'll see these minus buttons and all these columns.
Yeah.
You can use those to remove an item from a column. You can also use your finger to drag things back and forth. So I'll consider this column over here to be your shopping cart. Anything you did want to add on, just make sure you get it over into that column. If you didn't like those, you can remove them right here. It makes it a lot more interactive.
So I can do this?
You can see there. Yep.
And the whole time I'm doing this, right?
Sometimes it's not very fast.
Yeah, I know. Like we said in the beginning, those freaking computers. Come on, baby.
Yeah.
Hey, how come your computer's so slow?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, it must be the most expensive item I took off. That's why it's calculating the dollars. No. It worked for you. It's not working for me.
Sometimes if you do a couple actions a little too fast.
Oh, all right.
This computer also goes to sleep on a 10-minute timer now. So.
Oh, all right. Yeah, well, that's the technology. You got to do that for security reasons.
Yeah.
But anyways, the nice thing about this is you can move that around. The customer can actually use that. What you said, you often say it's like Amazon.
Yeah. So it's you find what you like, you put in your shopping cart, you look at the payment if that's what you want to pay.
All right. Let me move that back. It won't go back. All right, that's fine.
I can unlock it for you. It takes a couple seconds though.
Oh, you did?
No, I got
to
unlock my computer first with my cell phone, which is just the most awkward thing to have to pull out in the middle.
Well, that's what we got to do these days. Another reason why it takes so long in F&I to get things done.
Right.
If you sit down for 10 minutes, have a conversation with the customer, the next thing that's happening is you got to unlock your computer again.
There we go.
All right, so let's go back to that. All right, so what you're saying is that we can actually how do you do that again? Say that again in the shopping cart deal.
So you'll see
Amazon.
So as I kind of go through it, you'll see these little minus buttons on all of these columns.
Yeah.
You can use that to remove an item from a column for comparing. You can also use your finger to drag things back and forth. If maybe there's an option, a different setup that you don't see that you'd like to consider.
Okay.
What I will ask you to do is get any items over into this driver's needs analysis column. Consider that to be your shopping cart. So essentially anything you put over there, that'll show up over on the contract with Honda Financial.
Oh.
Once you're ready, you can hit this done button right up top, and then I'll get everything printed for you.
All right. Do you watch them do that, or you start printing paperwork?
So what's kind of nice is while they're doing it on here, I can see what they've moved around.
All right. So let's do this. Hopefully this will work out really well.
Yeah. Do it like a one item at a time.
I will.
Sometimes it's a little finicky.
That's good. All right. So I think all I'm interested in, but I don't have to say it. Oh, it didn't go. All right.
If you're looking to remove that one,
yeah, you can remove that one.
Yeah.
All right. So what's my payment?
Looks like it comes to about $394.81 a month.
Oh, wait a minute. I think. Let me see what that does. And what happens now? The payment goes up to. Oh, I can do that.
$411?
Is that how it works?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah. All right. So what if they still say? I'm kind of interested in, but not really. How often do you use this bad boy?
So yeah, it depends on what we've talked about. If the Assurant VSC is the most the thing they're most interested in, I will maybe sometimes point over to this. That is probably one of the ones that I recommend the most strongly, just because it's covering most specifically all the electronics on the vehicle.
So you have this digital picture frame that shows,
and sometimes I wish it would cycle a little faster, a little slower, depending on which thing I'm talking about. But we talk.
Well, that's your cycles.
So we talk about the electronics. This little one, I know it's kind of hard to read, but this talks about all the different semiconductors, computer chips that are embedded in the vehicle for different control systems, different safety systems, even down to the touch screen on the radio.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then you have powertrain coverage, and you have all the electronics, technology, wiring harness.
These are the wiring harnesses that are inside your vehicle. Maybe generically, this might not be your exact CRV, but something that's similar to this is going on in there with all of the different cable connections.
It looks like the bloodline of your car.
That's what I've compared it to, the human brain right there.
It is the human
circulatory system or something. Yeah,
that's beautiful. It brings a tangible part
Yeah.
The frames, the illustrations. It takes that intangible and makes it somewhat tangible.
Yeah.
Love the presentation.
Thank you.
I really do, and obviously you've had success with it, and customers are leaving here happy and peace of mind in knowing that they have the protection that they need.
Yeah.
Is there any other thing, any recommendation you would make to F&I managers that are skeptical of using the tablet?
Honestly, it's not hard to get acclimated to. It's nice because when you do have a little bit of an adjustment, maybe as you're talking to the customers, you realize that they're not going to drive as much on this vehicle as they did their previous. So maybe you had it in there for 7 years and 100,000 miles for the service agreement, and they're probably not even going to break 50,000 miles this time around. So it's a lot easier to come in, click a button or two, and make that adjustment. It shows up right away instead of having to reprint a page and go through all that hassle. I think it's just a lot more intuitive for people too.
The other thing I noticed, and you're being filmed, so it makes it more aggravating, is when the computer slows down.
Yeah.
And I think that probably happens often when you're sitting with a customer. And I think that's one of the frustrations and skepticism that a lot of F&I managers have, is that this thing is going to slow down, I'm going to get stuck. And I really believe that this F&I position, the communication you have with the customer doesn't have to be bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
And I think, oh man, the computer's screwing up again. Give it a minute. Give it a minute. I think
I make jokes about it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's my point. And I think one of the things that I want to stress, because I truly believe F&I managers should be using some type of tablet, the technology that's available out there. You're going to have these flaws with the technology.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that the paper menu is so easy to get through, and you can rely on it. But the bottom line here is, if you learn, do it, and overcome those challenges you have and those hurdles. And like you said, now I'm so used to it, I make a joke out of it.
Yeah. Do you know anyone out there that's using a paper menu they hand drew every line on?
Yeah.
It's still coming from the computer anyway.
Yeah,
it's not really adding that much to it. So if you have the opportunity, it's definitely worth giving this a try.
I have a question. I don't know if other F&I managers are going to think about it, but I was thinking about it. Because it's like a shopping cart and they can choose what they want, what do you do when they're deciding what to choose? Because you said you can see it from
I can see it. So I don't usually call much attention to it until towards the end. Say, were there any options you're kind of on the fence about? If they maybe have one over here, but I noticed they had a different one that they kept, moving in and moving out. So I'll kind of use that to not necessarily say I was spying on them, but that I at least noticed that they may have had something else. So I'll try to bring their attention back to it and maybe work it in there in a way that works for them.
That was our cameraman with a very good question, Corey.
Absolutely.
That was a great question. So make sure that hits the video. All right. You may see him oftentimes on Product Prep Live on our webinars. That was a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, I actually have another one.
What?
Have you ever, because you talk about leaving the menu in their hands and leaving the room.
That's when someone is like, I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to see any of that. They keep pushing the menu back at me. You can't do that with a tablet. You can just leave it up there.
Yeah.
But I've had experiences where F&I managers, not F&I managers, customers that said, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. I'm in a hurry. And I'd say, all right, no problem, here. And I'd leave it there. And I'd leave the room. And then I'd come back, and the next thing you know, they're looking at it. Yeah. It's in their hand, or it's closer to them. Mm-hmm. Another instance when I used to do that is when a customer would have, there'd be a husband, wife, or a son and father, or daughter and mother, or whatever, two people, and one person's interested, and the other person's saying, no, you're not buying that. No, you're not buying that. And they're not driving the car. All right. The person that's driving the car has some interest in the product, but the person, we oftentimes in this business call them third wheels, but they're consultants. Say, no, don't buy it. And oftentimes I'll be right back, folks, because I don't want to get in the middle of that argument.
Right.
And I'll leave the menu there, or you can leave the tablet up, leave the office, give them a few minutes, come back with a piece of paper in my hand. Only because it's not a tactic. It's just a matter of, look, these products are beneficial to customers, no question about it. And given the opportunity to settle down and have a discussion on their own without me getting involved in it, oftentimes you'll see that menu in their hand. So that's what I do on that. Awesome. Mike, you've been very informative. We really appreciate you joining us on this video. And
thanks for
until next time.
Go get
get
'em.
'em.